The 3 games of the summer. One would take 2 weeks, another just 1, and finally, one that would take a month. These 3 programs lived in harmony, until the month-long game got too ambitious, throwing everything into disarray. Right? Well, only sort of. I'll tell you this tale, the tale of my 3rd game, not quite finished, called Friends of Mine. It all began one fateful summer day when I realized I was on Game 3. I had decided to go on an idea, one that gave me great reprieve. I'm not really a big fan of that. The idea was a survival game where you had to go through different creepy horror events while solving a puzzle before the end of the world. Things kind of escalated into missing the deadline. Though, strangely, I wouldn't call this a failure for me, actually. In fact, I feel like it's where I learned the most stuff. Even if it ended being over the course of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months instead of just the 1. It's strange, you know, how easily I got myself attached to an idea, letting it grow well beyond its original intentions. Starting, I knew you needed a good foundation. That's what I told myself. So my goal was to create a controllable character and inventory for items as well as equipment. Bit by bit, this game came together, though for the time being my character was limited to essentially what was a paper cutout. There was a lot of research done at this stage, some more tutorial based, others a lot more focused on the game design aspect itself. Maybe that was not needed, but I think there was some learning from what players are looking for and how I could create something that played with horror a little bit. You see, the idea evolved into being able to survive the spooky stuff alongside venturing deeper into the world beyond just one little puzzle. It would be about overcoming various challenges, but still keeping the idea that you start over on death. I figured that the fear of starting over would add to the intensity as you get further along. Then I thought about the timer that I had in place originally, and I thought when the main time was up, it would be a big challenge against a big final horror rather than just ending the game there, moving a big puzzle to be the one you have to solve to beat the game right at the end. Think Little Outer Wilds inspired at this part. Then with each reset, traveling deeper into this world, you could learn how to pass the puzzle alongside getting other items to aid you against the various challenges that would take place in that moment. So there's our new basis. A little larger than how we started before, but I guess technically not unreasonable at this point. The item system was the first and probably one of the biggest hurdles. I sort of worked off a tutorial at first, but that was built for like a Stardew Valley top-down game. The best thing is, though, that most of the work done was the same. I just had to add a few points, which encouraged me to engage with what the programming actually was a little more to learn why things ticked the way they did. For example, I had to create the equipment system, items being removed after death alongside resetting your stats to their default after that. A lot of little things that I'm sure I still did end up missing a lot of areas of, but eventually, with a lot of effort, and I seriously mean it, a lot of effort, I got to the point where I was at least satisfied enough with it. It was a start, you know, and I needed to move on to other things at this point. The health and stamina was quite simple, but I wanted to use this design that I've been thinking about for a few years. Like, come on, stamina, teardrop into a heart, it's genius, I'm telling ya. Okay, so now we have our item system mostly working at this point, health and stamina too. But now a new challenge approaches. Enemies. I have not programmed enemies before. I've just realized that at this moment. This was a very interesting time for me, as I learned about the concept of state machines, which made me go, dude, why did I not know about this earlier? This would have made my life so much easier. Essentially, if you want to know a very, very basic of a state machine, it's code that can run when you need it to run, but it's not necessarily tied to the main script. Rather, you have one script that can call onto other states when a certain threshold is met. In essence, this is a really bad way to explain it, but that's the best I can do at this moment. I also learned how Godot uses the pathfinding for enemies, at least like a very, very, very rudimentary version of it. For now, we pressed on. I created the mouse-like, our very first enemy, and gosh, just look at how adorable it is. I mean, come on, oh god, it's... Now, again, this game project was happening on top of other life things. My goal was still to get it done before the next semester of school began for me in that August. But as things dragged on, it started to seem less and less likely that I'd be able to make it to that goal. More and more enemies were coming together though. This was honestly my favorite part. Now that I was at a point where I could figure out how to make something do what I wanted it to without having to resort to tutorials, it clicked. It really truly clicked. I just, was doing whatever and I could, it was like the only limit I had at this point was my own mind. Like, dude, I can just make this guy chase you and disappear super quick. How radical is that? Don't tell me I'm not creative. This is the best I can do, okay? My other one was a block with legs. Now, this isn't to say I just knew all of the documentation off the top of my mind, nor that I knew a lot, even. In fact, there were still plenty of areas that I still had to turn to past learners for. Enemy spawning was one. To be honest, my laptop was chugging. I mean, it wasn't that much stuff, but listen, this machine was built to write essays about attachment styles, not program a 3D world. Nonetheless, I chugged along. I added some cool shaders. Still don't really know anything about them. I just go into Godot shaders and like, hey, that looks cool, I'm gonna use this. Of course, one day I'll get to learning them, but it's not really my forte at this point. At this point, I was still trying to finish it within a month, but as time was drawing close, I'm not gonna lie, I was already kind of in the mindset that this was going to be a larger project. My goal was to have something to show by December. Now, we do have the infrastructure though. Enemies, attacking, death, fighting, items, and the such. But coming up on the end of the month, I realized I don't know how to 3D model. I mean, like I've done it in a very, very rudimentary sense, but I cannot do it very well. And my experience with it has been very far apart and very segmented. I had rough outlines, but I had a feeling this was going to take me a very long time. This game was not getting done in a month. So, we're dealing with 3D modeling alongside added responsibilities with holidays and school and other life things. Keeping a balance will be difficult, but here we are. Time to delay the inevitable. I added drowning, I made the object spin, I worked on the interaction system, which kind of included a dialogue system, but also that ended up being a little combined with dialogic at this point. I essentially did end up making a system so that when you interacted with an interactable item, the item would send a signal back. If it was to be picked up, then that item would disappear. If that item had significance for our protagonist, it would shoot a signal telling the dialogue system to look for a dialogue number in blank in whatever group it was in. Now, this was limited in the sense that you wouldn't really be able to have multiple lines of dialogue about anything, but I did end up adding the ability for it to also send a signal with a picture. Kinda Silent Hill style, just not cool and spinny. Dialogue between characters didn't get very far. We'll talk about it later, but for the time I did just use the dialogic bubble system. Made it a little unique looking, at least. Still delaying the 3D. Oh hey, look, Silksong came out and there went a month. Great, okay, fine, I'll do the 3D. I've been procrastinating much too long. I decided to start with buildings. I got into what they in the industry like to call modular modeling. Wait, hold on. Modular modeling, where you build a house by pieces to make it easier to be reused, as well as making it easier to build little pieces to houses rather than full houses each and every time. This also helped with collision stuff, not just a one-sided face house, which I now know is a problem, but I didn't know that, to be honest. Frankly, 3D may be a beast too strong for me, but I am learning the ways bit by bit. To be honest, I was a little bored with the 3D. Wanted to make the attack system a little better to read with animations, but our Paper Mario cutout guy here wasn't cutting it at this point. It was time to face my ultimate challenge, modeling a bipedal character. Okay, I know they teach this one all the time, but it's just a big thing, especially if I've never done it before, okay? I didn't know how to do it. This took me a whole week to complete. My week I had on break from classes was spent on this. Listen. All I'm saying is, you don't know patience till your computer makes you wait 5 minutes before it can tell you if you deleted everything or slightly moved one vertice on accident. I used tutorials by Joey Carlino, and they were incredibly insightful. Quite frankly though, I'll probably need to watch that and 10 other tutorials again to actually be able to make something once more. But like building your first pot, this felt incredible to do for the first time. Seriously, it's like I have a little creature. From blocking out this creature to the mistakes I made with the modifiers and then weight painting. Oh god, not the weight painting. Please, your jacket shouldn't move with your leg. Please, I'm begging you. It was an experience. one that I will be reliving eventually, but we will get to that later. At this point, it was now mid-October. Things have become busier as the season went on, but I also chugged along with friends. I made more interactable things. I built a UI as well as a seed system to be able to run back very specific instances of the world and see what happens, just in case I ran into issues with playtesting. We didn't get to that point. I gave our titular protagonist those attack animations I was talking about, and slowly but surely I added more to this world, from ambience to events to enemies to items. Oh, look at this awesome grass plugin. I made the grass itself, but I did not make the grass do this. I'll tell you that much. My buildings weren't pretty, but they were serviceable enough at this point. But as the year came to a close, I got super sick, didn't want to exist, and then I died. It is now 2026. I've spent nearly half a year on this project. There still wasn't anything coherent to show off, pieces that had come together to maybe make somewhat of an entertaining sandbox, but just nothing of substance. I gave it a long and hard think at this point. You know, I still really do want to complete this game, but at this rate, it'll be a long while before I even have the capabilities or even the time to invest without setback every time I've got to remember where I left off the previous time I worked on it. I tried maybe outsourcing work, but listen, frankly, that's just too pricey for me. Bits and pieces slowly built, but I feel like I'd lost the plot at this point. I really don't want to say I've thrown the towel in, that I'm out, because don't get me wrong, I'm not. I will return to fans. There's a lot here, I'm telling you. But I don't have the pieces needed. Yet. If I want to do this idea justice, well, I've got to train myself a little more. Go smaller, see what happens from there, be able to create what I want to create before I try creating it. I'd lost the plot, I've gone too big for my britches. In over my head, whatever it was, I was overwhelmed with areas I was underprepared in. And while I want to face those areas, it'd be a hodgepodge of abilities and a mess of aged art, programming, and abilities. Maybe that's just what I want to tell myself. Makes it easier for me to accept that I failed. What I created was not what it was supposed to be, and it didn't become what I wanted it to be either. That's a failure to me, but that's all right. Each failure, a chance to learn. And hey, I still did some pretty cool stuff. Stuff that I would definitely have not been able to do before this point. That is where the fate of this third game of the summer lies, and where the game journey's story resides. So what? Game journey's over now? Not quite. A little after I decided to want to leave France for now, I decided I just wanted to make something. Now this next game isn't really made for anyone but myself. I'll tell you more about it later, I'm still working on it. This one will not be a bigger project. It'll be done soon though, I promise that. Keep an eye out. But I wanted to give some follow-up, even nearly a year later. I do apologize for how long it took, especially after that first one. In a way, maybe I didn't want to look at it. You know, that failure I felt from this experience. Unfortunately, I like throwing myself into more walls, so again, I'm going to give it another shot. Of course, now I know a thing or two about how difficult it is to climb a wall, so I should be slightly better. And if I fall again, then so be it. As long as I get a little farther each time, then one day I'll cross these walls that keep me down. Thank you very much. I will see you later.